Hey, good morning, everyone. How's it going? So, just finished a morning workout, and this is a topic I've been wanting to talk about for a while here because this is a common concern that I get when I talk to chiropractors who are wanting to add an exercise department in their clinic, but they don't know if they can. They think they don't have enough space. They think you need a ton of space to be able to do so. I was trying to use this little makeshift tripod mount or phone mount. Didn't work very well, so I'm just gonna hold my phone. So anyway, a common thing when I talk to doctors, they say, how much space do you need in your clinic? And then when we start talking, we find out that they actually have a solution. And I would say that the vast majority of them have a solution. So first off, if you want to see a behind the scenes demo of how our doctor training portal works, go to demo.movenowu.com and you can see about a 30-minute pre-recorded demo that we made, so you can see the content that our Move Now doctors go through with their staff, with their teams, what they train on, what they use as resources, what they use to train their staff. So check that out if you haven't already. I put it in the subject line or whatever you call it above. So anyway, here's a epiphany that I had as far as space, and then I'm going to get back to this topic and talk about some solutions that we've worked through with multiple doctors that we talked about in their clinics. So back in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I started practicing there in 2003. We're in 2019 now. So 2003, started practicing in Albuquerque, practiced straight Gonstead chiropractic for several years, and then about 6 years into it, started to say, I'm looking for something more to do for my patients besides the adjustment, because I want more objective measures. Okay, I want more objective change. What can I change? Change the structure. So I got into curve correction, and then that whole process then led into functional movement. Here we are today. But anyway, as I got into the curve correction thing, I was in a clinic that really didn't have a ton of extra space to do stuff. Like, every room was being used for something. Every room had a purpose. So I could have done what so many doctors are doing now in their mindset, where they say, well, I want to do this, but I don't have any space. So too bad, can't do it, move on. Or they say, do I have to take on more space? Do I have to rent out more space, maybe in a suite next door to your building? Do I need to knock down a wall and put a doorway in between and take on more cost and more overhead and more of this? And the answer for most chiropractors is no, you don't need to do that. So here's how it worked out for me when I was back in Albuquerque, is that we had a room that was probably, I don't know, I'm here in my home gym. It was probably from about, it wasn't even this wide. Okay. So it was like maybe where that lat pull down machine ends, came out to maybe this deadlift platform here. So what is that? Maybe 12 by 12 at the most. So it was a 12 foot by 12 foot room. And we had these triple stacked steel frame, full spine x-ray racks where we stored x-ray. This is before digital was a thing and you could just store it on a hard drive. We had thousands of pounds of x-ray. And we had to store this stuff because you have to store it for, 7 years, depending on what state you're in. And we had it taking up all the space. It was on every wall. It was in a middle aisle. You could barely move in that room. It was just stacked full of x-ray. So I went to the doctor that owned the clinic. I was an associate doctor at the time. And I had this vision of, I want patients in this room doing corrective work. At that time, it was doing traction because I hadn't gotten into the exercise part of it yet, but I'll explain how the story continues. So I went to him and I said, hey, look, you have a space that's not rendering any services for patients. It's not helping any patients at all. It's just storage. It's not rendering any sort of revenue for the clinic. It's just storage. So how about we do this? I said, how about I move all the stuff, I arrange to move it, these thousands of pounds of x-ray, and then multiple thousands of pounds of these big steel heavy racks that were assembled by a patient of ours years ago, a fabricator. We hadn't moved it in years, bolted to the walls, bolted to the floors. And I said, I'll move it and I'll pay for a monthly storage locally down the street to keep it in. I'll move it all over there. I'll fix up the room so it looks presentable, and then I'll use the room for the things that I'm proposing to do as far as rendering these services for patients. And so went back and forth with it, and he finally said, okay, sure, do it. So I had a couple patients that actually owe me some favors. So we did this on a Friday. I got some old pictures, some old clips of this somewhere. we moved these huge, heavy x-ray racks with x-rays on them, fully loaded. Each one probably weighed, I mean, literally 1,000 pounds. And we put them on wheels, rolled it down this loading sidewalk that was in the back of the clinic. I have a big lifted Dodge truck, pulled up the truck. It just perfectly lined up. So when you put the tailgate down, it was like maybe like a 3-inch lift. We picked this thing up, 4 of us, put it in the bed of my truck, and we loaded up 4 of those in my truck, strapped it down, drove down the street to a storage place, went to the storage place. That was a little harder because we had to restack these racks in the storage place. We did that with like these chain hoists. And anyway, it was an ordeal, but it was well worth it because I freed up this room that was being used for nothing. And so now we expanded with that. We got really busy, and then we took other parts of the clinic that were being used for like record storage. We had a couple workstations that were set up in this big room that didn't really need workstations spread out like they were. So we moved those workstations, packed them in other rooms, opened up that area to do more corrective exercise, to add more equipment for spinal corrective care. So anyway, that's a very similar thing that I'm seeing when I talk to these chiropractors who are hesitant to put corrective exercise in their practice because of the space objection or the space concern. They want to do it, but they don't think it's possible. We start talking, and the first thing I say is, tell me the layout of your clinic. Tell me how many rooms you have, how many staff do you have, how many workstations do you have? And we start talking through this, and then they find out, yeah, you know what? That room is really not being utilized all that well. I can move that workstation into a different room, and that frees up that whole room, and now that room could be our corrective exercise room to start in. And now, mind you, the size of the room that you start in with corrective exercise does not have to be huge. It does not have to be massive. You don't have to have 500 square feet put aside for exercise department. You could do this literally in a 12-foot by 12-foot room, maybe even smaller, and you could see a couple patients in there at a time. Depending on your growth and depending on your goals, you may have to knock a wall down. You might have to build out bigger. But at first, if you just want to get the systems down and want to get rolling, what you do is you have your normal schedule that you see patients, and then you strategically schedule where you can see these corrective exercise patients throughout your shift. So maybe if you're seeing 50 patients in a day and your space and your staff and your comfort level at the time only allows you to see 20 exercise appointments in a day, that's how you set it up. And you have a patient maybe scheduled as 2 appointments throughout that shift. So you have their adjustment and then you have their exercise appointment, if that's the way that you need to keep track of it. How we do it in our clinic is we have color coding for each appointment. So that's probably a better way to do it so it doesn't mess up your stats depending on what kind of EHR system that you use. Is you just change the color of the patient. So if you have an adjustment only patient for us, that's green. And if someone does a full-fledged visit, then it's in like a pink color. And so we have all these different color coding things that we have with scheduling. That's also a module, and many lessons that we've built out inside of Move Now University is how to map out your schedule. How do you strategically schedule? And what you have to do is you figure out how many patients do you see in a day, how many patients do you want to see doing the corrective exercise, how many staff is it going to take, space, all of that sort of thing, and then what is the maximum number of people that can be in your clinic at any given time. So you can use this Excel spreadsheet that we built out where you can basically see what times are going to be the busiest times in the clinic with the most amount of patients. Those are also the times you're not going to put a lot of your special appointments in. You're not going to put a new patient in at that busiest time necessarily because it might be taxing the space limits of your clinic or your staffing. So anyway, how do you make this work is that you have strategy behind it. You have someone that has gone through all of the errors and learned from their mistakes, which is this guy. Try again until we figure out a formula that we think works really well, and then distill that down and figure out what is that formula and how can we map that out for someone else who's going through that same process so they can just go right past that whole learning curve and not have to go through the same process that we went through, which is the trial and error process. So anyway, that's just one thing inside of the Move Now Doctor portal, the Move Now University Doctor portal. And you can watch a demo of the behind the scenes of how that works by clicking the link below. It's demo.movenowU.com. If you have any questions or comments, throw that here below. Hope this helps explain why the space requirement a lot of times can be overcome. There are solutions. There are rare exceptions where we need to really think even further outside the box, but for the most part, the solution is a lot easier than you think. And it is well worth the efforts of putting in the small amount of time of moving some things around to be able to offer the service to your patients, to be able to differentiate yourself in your community, of doing this corrective level of care, to getting the results that your patients are really looking for, to having that new satisfaction in practice of being able to do something that you know your patients need, but you've never really addressed it before. That's the way I felt for years. I felt unsatisfied. I felt like I was leaving my patients hanging. I felt like they had questions that I wasn't addressing, I wasn't handling. Now how it works is patient comes in, they have a question, and the really cool part about this, and this is part of the thing that we teach and we talk about quite a bit, is because we've automated so many systems and we have resources for our patient, they can ask a question, and instead of us having to go into a 10-minute explanation with them, we can say, hey, that's inside of your online portal here, here, and here. And we can point to it and we can show it to them, and then they can go and they can watch it. And it took us 30 seconds to point them in that direction. They're satisfied, they're getting great guidance, you're the hero, and it's a win-win for everyone. That's also talked about a little bit inside the demo as far as how we automate the systems, and we have this online membership site that patients get access to that you're able to fully control as the doctor in your clinic, called the 12-week transformation. Anyway, I'm saying too much right now. You got to check out the demo. And again, thanks for joining us. Have a great day. We'll see you later. And then hi, Kaylee, who's watching this live. Kaylee is my assistant who's in the room and our new patient coordinator, and she is awesome. Kaylee, you rock, and everyone needs a Kaylee. All right, over and out.